going to be talking about sheet mulching. So first of all, if you are interested in hearing this in Spanish, Rolando is going to go through how to get to the Spanish room.
Muy buenas noches. Si desea escuchar la presentación en español, seleccione y haga clic en el botón que dice Listening in o Escuchando en, que está circulado en rojo arriba. Las dos selecciones son inglés y español. Seleccione español si desea escuchar esta clase en ese lenguaje. Si no elige un idioma, automáticamente se escuchará la presentación en inglés. Si desea hacer una pregunta, escríbela en la sección de Q&A o preguntas y respuestas. El traductor, que seré yo, le hará su pregunta en inglés a los presentadores. Muchas gracias. Okay, go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, so again, my name is Kristen Bowman. Welcome to Sheet Mulching Tips and Tricks, a little bit of an overview of what we will be covering tonight. We're going to be looking at EB Mud water supply and our drought update, how to eliminate your lawn by sheet mulching, EB Mud rebates and resources, upcoming events, and Q&A. You are all muted and you are off camera. You do have access to the Q&A button, which you should see on your screen. I do want to let you know this webinar is being recorded, so by participating, you do agree to be on a recorded webinar. And I will be sending out probably within a week the resources that we talk about today, the recording and the PowerPoint for you to review. About midway, we are going to be looking at the Q&A button for questions, and we'll also be looking at that at the end. So EB Mud gets 90% of our water comes from snow melt. It's up in the McCollum watershed, which is near, for those of you who know, the Kirkwood ski area. It travels from the McCollum River watershed to Pardee Reservoir, and then travels 90 miles down into our service area and dumps into local reservoirs. This is a view of our service area, which extends from Rodeo down to Castro Valley, Alameda, over to Walnut Creek. We serve 1.4 million customers with fresh water, 740,000 wastewater customers, and over 4,000 miles of pipe. EB Mud, as you probably know, is currently in drought stage 2, since we've had a couple dry years in a row, and we are calling for a mandatory 10% water use reduction, and that's really district wide. So an all hands on deck team approach to get to that 10%, and we were looking pretty good in October with 13% less water use than 2020. So what can you do? First of all, find and fix leaks. Leaks are just a waste of water. Believe it or not, 1 in 4 houses have a leak. So check your toilets, check your irrigation for leaks at this time of year. And then install efficient fixtures and shower heads and take a 5-minute shower. Find your favorite song, take a 5-minute shower. By reducing our showers to 5 minutes, we can save millions of gallons of water a day throughout our service area. And then focus on saving water in the landscape. So if you have, this is just an example, if you have 1,000 square foot lawn, this is in Oakland, and that takes about 32,000 gallons of fresh potable water to water that lawn every year. If you change that to a water efficient design, you're down to like 9,000 gallons a year or less potentially. So with that, I want to introduce Lori Caldwell, our guest speaker. She works for Stop Waste and also has her own consulting business. She does a lot of sheet mulching, and you can take it from here, Lori.
Great. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, she said, I'm Lori Caldwell. I'm going to be talking about the sheet mulching portion of our webinar today. Please feel free to, if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A section, and we will definitely get all your questions answered by the time we're finished. All right. Next slide. Can I get to? All right, so this is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about what is sheet mulching, all the great benefits of sheet mulching. There's going to be some steps. There's definitely going to be a prep step. We're going to talk about the recipe, the sheet mulch, actual sheet mulch recipe, planting after sheet mulching, and then troubleshooting. And then, of course, we'll have time at the end for the Q&A. So what is sheet mulching? For me, sheet mulching is the perfect marriage of the tools that we need for sheet mulching, which are cardboard, compost, and mulch. And we'll get into that a little further. The many, many benefits that aren't even included on this slide of sheet mulching are promoting healthy soil and healthy plants, feeding the soil food web, this whole ecology that's going on right underneath our feet, that feeds us when we feed it. It's great for excellent unused areas. So if there's like a weed patch, or if you just have a dirt patch that you're not really sure what to do with, just go ahead and sheet mulch it. The nice thing about it is sheet mulching also helps to kind of loosen up things like clay soils. You have sandy soils. The addition of adding these organic materials to it are going to help clump the sandy particles together. All right, so there's some prep that you'll need to do. The first thing, which is to apply for your local rebate. And I know that Kristen's going to talk about that a little bit later. So that should be the first thing you do. Can we go to the next slide, please? If you're going to be adding any hardscape elements, if you're going to be adding things like pathways or dry creek beds or large things like boulders or anything like that, you may want to go ahead and put that in first and then sheet mulch around it. Any plants that are going to be 5 gallons or larger, that should be added to it as well. And then when you do go to plant the 5-gallon plants, under normal circumstances, you would of course be planting them level with the soil. But since you're going to be sheet mulching after, you want to try to avoid kind of a bowl scenario. So you want to make sure that when you do plant your 5-gallon or larger plants, that you're going to plant them slightly above the soil line. So when the time comes to sheet mulch it, you can either make it so it's even, it now becomes even, or depending on the plant that you're trying to grow, you can go ahead and make it slightly on a mound. That'd be nice. Any kind of weed that has a diameter of maybe about 1/2 inch or more, I would definitely pull that out of your, I'll pull it out by hand for certain. But anything else, you can just leave right there. Even if they're just waist-high weeds, you can go ahead and chop those down and let those lie, and then you can sheet mulch right over top of that. And the nice thing about it is you do not need to remove your existing lawn. You can definitely just go ahead and sheet mulch on top of that. And then what's going to happen is it's the lawn underneath is going to compost into place. And then eventually it's going to break down, and all the nitrogen that has been taken from the soil is going to go right back into the soil. All right, next slide, please. So before you dig, before you put in your 5-gallon plants, before you do probably what the next step is going to be trenching. You're going to want to definitely contact 811. You can either call them or you can go onto their website and do what's called kind of do a ticket for it. And then what happens is they're going to go ahead and send out all the utility companies to your property, and they're going to mark accordingly. It's just a precautionary measure, just so, because if you're going to be digging for 5-gallon plants, that's a pretty big hole. You want to make sure that you're not going to run into any gas or electric lines or anything like that. So they'll come out, all of them will come out. You'd be surprised of how many different things you have running underneath your house or underneath your property, and they'll come out and mark it out appropriately. So please call before you do that. And then when it comes to of course, when it comes to the rebate, please make sure that you apply for the rebate and get approval first before you start doing work. All right, next slide, please. Trenching along the hardscape edges. So this is super key, especially if you're trying to get rid of something kind of pernicious. If you're trying to get rid of a pernicious weed, trenching in the hardscape edges, along the hardscape edges is going to be super key for, because when you bend the cardboard, which is our weed blocker, down into the trench, then what happens is it blocks up the light, of course, but then the runner weed doesn't have the ability to run out and kind of escape. So that's nice. So it's probably one of the hardest portions of the sheet mulch process, but I believe it's most likely going to be the most important. So trenching along the hardscape edges. So wherever your area that you're going to be sheet mulching, it's going to meet a sidewalk or a driveway or a walkway, or sometimes there's junction boxes and all different types of kind of hardscape elements in different people's lawns. You're going to want to, I like to use a spade shovel for this practice. You're going to try to shovel down about 3 to 6 inches down with clay soil. Sometimes that can be a little bit difficult. Trenching right now would be great since we just had a little bit of rain, or give it a little bit of water, probably about the day before, just to kind of loosen it up. It's going to make it a lot easier. Not saturated. You want it damp, not super wet. Then you end up with a bunch of clay mess. So 3 to 6 inches down, about a foot apart. And if you do use a spade shovel, the length of the head of the shovel is a very good measuring stick for you to do that. And then the key element of this is 45-degree angle towards the hardscape edges. So again, just like with our 5-gallon plant, if I don't do the trenching and I go to put on my layers, my sidewalk, my cardboard, compost, and mulch, just going to spill over onto the hardscape. If I trench at a 45-degree angle to accommodate not only for any of the runner weeds, but I know instinctively people like to do things at a 90-degree angle, but cardboard is never going to sit nicely at a 90-degree angle. It's never going to sit right here at the corner where it should be. At a 45, it's going to make it more of a slope. And that way, when you do cardboard, compost, and mulch, it becomes cardboard, compost, and mulch. And now we're nice and even. So 40 feet, 5-degree angle is definitely going to be key for that. Next slide, please. So now, as you're starting to do the trenching, you're going to find yourself with large chunks of soil, leftover grass, or whatever plant happens to be growing in the area that you're sheet mulching. So you could do a couple of things. My best recommendation would be to kind of create mounds for visual interest on your property or on your land, in your landscape. With the idea being that especially if you're going to be incorporating a lot of drought tolerant plants, this mounding, you could plant on these mounds. It's going to increase the drainage, which is great. Native plants don't like to get their feet wet. So by creating these mounds, you're also recycling these resources and creating a great place for your new planting. So you can make them pretty much any size that you would like. I just flip them over, put them in circles. This will be a great opportunity to make small berms if you want, or if that's not your thing, you can just lie it evenly across your landscape and then sheet mulch on top of it. It's going to be a lot easier to reuse those materials on the site than it would be to continually have to put them into your landfill cart, because they're going to be primarily a lot of soil, and we're not looking for that in our green cart or organics cart. So it adds visual interest, which is nice, because your standard lawn is pretty just like flat and pretty one-dimensional. So adding some mounds for that visual interest would be important. And then, like I said, increasing the drainage. And then it kind of saves you money. This is the type of stuff that you would normally, if you're not doing any trenching, you would have to go out and buy soil in order to create these mounds. So it's great reuse. Next slide. Now, also while you are trenching, chances are you probably have your the pop-up spray heads are going to be appearing along the edges, of course, of the lawn, most likely next to the hardscape. Most likely too, occasionally there could be pop-ups in the middle as well. So you're going to want to convert those from pop-up up to drip irrigation. So you basically have to decide, and that's pretty much based on what type of design you would like to do, what things you're going to be capping, and what things you're going to be converting. So you'll need to, and since you're going to be doing most likely drip irrigation, which we always recommend, you're going to need to bring the water pressure down. So you're going to need to make sure that either you're going to attach a pressure regulator at the valve for each one of the valves that you have to bring the PSI down to probably about 25 to 30 pounds per square inch, which is going to be sufficient for drip irrigation. Or if you're not so mechanically inclined, you also have the option of buying a conversion kit. I have that pictured here. They work off of, you can get them for Netafim or kind of inline tubing setups, or your traditional kind of black tubing kind of setups as well. Again, it brings down the PSI. It also contains a filter. And then the question of whether or not where it should be, take a look at your yard. If there's like a slope, then you're probably going to want to make sure that you use gravity instead of having the worry about the water to be pushed up. Is it going to be kind of out of the way? Because that's where the tubings are going to be able to come out of. So there's a lot of different factors. I always like to go to my local, irrigation store to go ask any questions. I like to either check out places like Ewing in my area or Urban Farmer in that area as well. I'm not sure if anybody else knows them, any other specific companies. But you can always check because they're going to have everything that you need there. And then you'll be able to answer, they'll be able to answer a ton of questions for you about that as well. All right, next slide. All right, looks like we have some questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to tackle those. Let's see, I have.
Do you want me to read?
No, I can see them. I
Okay.
can see them. I have 2 questions about Bermuda grass, 1 question about blackberry plants, and the other one about affecting the tree root. So I'll do the tree root one first. So you would see under normal circumstances in a regular winter year, a lot of the roots that we have, and of course this all depends on the species of plant that you're planting as well. A lot of the roots have come up to the surface. You can sheet mulch over them, but I would go a little bit thinner than I normally would if it was just lawn, because mulch does have water holding capabilities, but you don't want to pack it too much and too close to especially if the roots really are very, very prominent. For something like that, I might just put mulch in the soil area where the roots kind of are and not cover them specifically. Once they kind of come down and go back into the soil, that's generally where I might start, where my sheet mulch project might actually start, and then leave the area where the roots are more exposed, again, just to kind of fill in the empty gaps between where the roots come out, and not go like hardcore with the cardboard compost and mulch on that, just so you can still get the weed coverage, still have the ability to hold on to water a lot longer, which is another great benefits for sheet mulching. Let's see, the Bermuda grass. So the Bermuda grass one is oh, I'm sorry, there were some other questions that came up here. I see them. Excuse me. So for sheet mulching Bermuda grass there, I'm going to recommend a couple of different options. When it comes to trenching, you really want to make sure that you go down to those 6 inches to really go down deep along the area, especially if it's like a sidewalk. You're going to want to try to scrape as much of the soil off of it. Sometimes the plants will definitely try to grow up in the where basically where the sidewalk ends, however the depth of it is, there's usually like an empty gap. You want to make sure that you try to clear as much off of the side as you can. When it comes to using cardboard, I'm going to definitely recommend using recycled cardboard boxes. You're going to want to go thick on the cardboard, and you're going to want to definitely go thicker on the mulch. Usually the recommended depth for just getting rid of a regular lawn is going to be like a good 3 inches. For Bermuda grass, I may go for at least 4 inches, depending on, of course, there's a lot of factors. The landscape, you don't want to go too crazy, but you definitely want to go thicker on the cardboard and thicker on the mulch. And then you should definitely wait to plant. You want to try to choke that plant out as much as you possibly can before you decide to actually plant stuff in that, for sure. Let's see. There was a question that says, should we call 811 if you've been planting smaller than 5 gallons? No. If it's mostly, it's going to be for the trenching portion, and if you're planting 5 gallon or larger plants, but no, not for that. But since you should be trenching, I would definitely call 811 for that. Sheet mulching for planting vegetables. I'm sorry, there's a bunch of stuff going on.
You got it, Lori. Can you use sheet mulching when planting vegetables?
Okay, I'm sorry. There's just a bunch of questions that are appearing and disappearing from the thing. So you can, but for this recipe, the cardboard, the coarse mulch, and the compost, this I would only use for perennials, woody perennials. So woody herbs, fruit trees, fruit shrubs, berries, stuff like that. It's going to be a little bit much for something like an annual plant. It would be way too much water, for sure. And then usually the roots aren't as thick to be able to get kind of through the cardboard. So for perennials, I would say yes. For annuals, you can do a smaller version of it, or sheet mulch in the paths, because you'll still be able to get the benefit if you sheet mulch in the path. That way the mulch is still going to trap the water along the path, and the plants will still be able to take advantage of it. But if you want to do some sort of sheet mulching with annuals, substitute the cardboard for newspaper, and then substitute the coarse mulch for about 1 to 2 inches of straw mulch. And you can do the same thing, and then you can just cut holes into the newspaper and plant your annual edibles in that. Blackberry plants, again, it's very similar to what I would recommend for a Bermuda grass, for sure. First of all, I would try to, for some of the blackberry plants, I would definitely try to dig out as much as I possibly could first. And then again, making sure that you are incorporating a thicker amount of cardboard and a deeper layer of mulch, for sure. Let's see, gophers. So if you're going to be planting ahead of time, if you're going to be planting, again, it's still, the recommendations are still going to be the same. So if I'm planting 5 gallons or larger and I want to put my plant in a gopher cage, then I should do that. And then you can do everything after. You'll just have to cut in through the cardboard for that. So if you're planting, the only time I ever plant on the sheet mulch, as if I'm just getting on the same day, is if it's fall and it's cool and I have the opportunity to get cooler days and possible rain. And I'm just getting rid of something just very simple, just a simple lawn. If it's something like Bermuda grass or blackberry or ivy or some sort of pernicious weed, then I would wait for that to die down before I would go ahead and plant it. So most likely, depending on what you're trying to do, you may have to cut it open and then put everything in gopher cages in the holes that you cut into the cardboard for future plantings, to avoid, of course, those stupid gophers trying to take it down. About 3 inches, Gary, for the mulch. Minimum about 3 inches in depth for the mulch for sure. And when you're looking for mulch, you do need to look at the piece size. The urge to get very small chunks is nice because it's small, but again, because it is smaller, it's going to break down a lot faster. The urge to get big pieces are there, but they don't really kind of cover. They don't have really good coverage. It's like trying to balance 2 rocks on top of each other. So when you're looking for piece size, I always go about 2 to 3 inches. And that always makes for a really good coverage. Excuse me, always makes for really good coverage for that. I would wait at least 6 months, if I'm killing a Bermuda grass lawn, in order to plant it. Also too, if you think that you don't have Bermuda grass, I would definitely check. If you don't, I would check and see if your neighbors have Bermuda grass. If they do, I may do a proactive thing and plant something with a very fibrous root system along the border between my yard and my neighbor's yard. That fibrous, something like an aster would be lovely. It's a lovely plant. But the roots are very fibrous, so much the fact that Bermuda grass can't penetrate through it. So that way it's not gonna come over and basically comb over onto your existing sheet mulch. Horsetail equisetum, I would probably try to dig it up first of all as much as I can. I know it kind of goes underground, but I would try to dig that out as much as possible. And again, like some other kind of like Bermuda grass, blackberry, definitely go thicker. The thing about sheet mulching is there's always going to be some sort of maintenance, because on a rainy year, everything's going to be sped up. The breakdown of the materials is going to break down a lot faster. When you irrigate in that area, that's going to break down a lot faster as well. So it's going to be, and if you're dealing with things like pernicious weeds, you're always going to have to be kind of paying attention to what's going on. When there's things like cardboard, I never take off the tape off of the cardboard. I always like to use it as a kind of a flag or an indicator. So if I see it, then I know that my mulch is definitely broken down, that the cardboard most likely has broken down, and that means that the potential for weeds to come up because now there's light, or the potential for weeds to be able to kind of grab a hold. And then all I need to do from there is move back the existing mulch that I have, patch it with a dry piece of cardboard, and then put in at least another 3 inches of mulch on top of that.
Lori, do you want to get back to your presentation? We can do the rest.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. So let's get into it. Hopefully this will answer the remainder of your questions. You can go to the next slide, please. So the first layer is, of course, going to be cardboard. The nice thing about cardboard versus any kind of landscape fabric is it's permeable. And permeability is going to be super key. We need to be able to have water and nutrition pass through that weed barrier to get down to the soil to actually feed the soil. I've seen a lot of beautiful soil on top of a weed blocker. Pull back the weed blocker and all you see are white roots from dead plants and just denuded gray soil. So cardboard is great because it is permeable. If you're kind of a scrounger like I am, it's free, which is another really great reason to utilize it as well. And eventually, because it is organic in nature, it will break down and work its way into your soil. So it's going to help build healthy soil in the long run. So when you're using it, overlap by about 6 to 8 inches. And the nice thing about a cardboard box is the cardboard box is going to have those corners and those gaps. So making sure that you're able to overlap that is going to be super key as far as making sure that you have enough layers in order to block off whatever you're trying to kill underneath. Some people like to sheet mulch and they like to add water to the cardboard just to kind of anchor it into place. I'm the school of let's just go ahead and just put it on dry. And then if you have any concerns about it blowing away, I just do it in bits and pieces. I'll do a corner, cardboard, compost, and then I leave a gap on the edge so I can see the cardboard, so I can do another overlap. And then I'll go over there, do cardboard, make sure it connects and overlaps with the stuff I've already done, put more compost, and then just continue to do that using the compost to weigh down the cardboard instead of using water. And then I just cover the whole thing with mulch on top. The cardboard will last a lot longer, believe me. Next layer. So there's plenty of places where you can get cardboard for free. Now, you can buy cardboard, and I think the next slide after that talks about that. But right now, it's kind of hard to find rolled cardboard. There's only a couple of places, and if you go to the website, lawntogarden.org, if you go to what's called the marketplace tab will send you to put in your zip code, and wherever you are pretty much in California, you'll be able to take a look and see where you can get recycled content mulch, recycled content compost, as well as purchase rolled cardboard. But again, I'm in the camp of let's try to save some money and let's get some recycled cardboard. So grocery stores, furniture, appliance stores, the picture that you saw prior to this slide, that's a bike box. The bicycle boxes are very thick. When you open them up, they end up being, at least 8 to 10 feet long. So you can cover a huge swath of land with just one box. Appliance stores, places like IKEA or Costco, and basically any kind of cardboard box except for no wax boxes. And I usually don't like to use boxes that have that are white, just because of the labels, since I'm not sure if the labels are soy-based inks or not. But other than that, you can go ahead and use any type of box. And, even if it's small, because there's going to be corners, there's going to be holes in other boxes you're going to need to cover. So any box is pretty much a good box. Next slide. This is the rolled cardboard. Like I said, it does need to be purchased. Personally, especially if you're trying to get rid of something nasty, I definitely wouldn't recommend it. It's very thin. It's a bee flute. Again, if you get it, your best case scenario would be to roll it across your lawn one way and then roll it across and kind of make like a lattice work on it. They usually come in 3-foot widths, 250 or sometimes longer foot lengths. For that. So one of the benefits of that is if you can find it, you can get it kind of right away, and it is relatively easy to apply. But you can't go wrong with recycled cardboard boxes. Just ask your friends too. Especially now. Christmas is coming. Now's the time to kind of save up all those boxes that you would use for presents and stuff like that, and get stuff from your friends as well. Next slide. So I talked about taking trench materials and using them to create mounds for visual interest. And so this slide just pretty much represents the best way to kind of sheet mulch over those mounds. So I know intuitively you kind of want to just go kind of around the mound. Again, we're trying to avoid things like gappage. So instead of layering, and so here's my mound. So instead of layering it kind of like on the side, because if it's on the side, there's going to be a little bit of a gap, and then that's potential for mulch to fall in there, to light to get in there. But you're going to want to just kind of just take them, go long ways over the trench and take those open cardboard boxes and layer them from the top down and overlapping it as it works its way down the slope and back onto the flat area. That's going to set it a lot easier. Again, since we're incorporating a lot of layers, and even with the soil, everything is going to look very kind of over exaggerated and kind of puffy in the beginning. But as things get wet, as everything starts to settle, everything will settle down over time to the point where you can still look like you've added stuff to your lawn, to your landscape area, but not so much that it looks like you kind of overdid it. Next slide, please. All right, so the second layer on top of our cardboard layer is compost, about 1.5 to 2 inches on top of it. So if you're going to be planting, it's going to provide food for new plantings. Again, it's going to hold a ton of water. It can hold it's pretty much its body weight in water, which is great, especially for new plantings, as we are hoping for definitely for more rain. It's going to feed the soil food web, which in turn is going to help protect the new plants that you're going to add to your landscape. And then if you're planting within the same time, all your irrigation tubing should go on top of this layer, between the compost layer and the mulch layer. That way it's going to be, that water is going to stay held for a lot longer, so you don't have to worry about things like evaporation. Next slide, please. So then on top of our compost layer, we want to go ahead and put a coarse mulch on top. Again, we're always looking for recycled content, mulch. So if you think about pallet mulch, is very popular right now, where you can get untreated pallets. Sometimes you can just get it in, they call it natural color, your pallet color. They also like to dye it in like 3 or 4 different colors, like a mahogany, what they call a natural, the brown, like you see here. And then they also dye it in black, which I don't recommend because it's like, it's just so, it holds the heat so much. It's like wool turtleneck sweater in Livermore in the middle of August for your plants. So it's always the heat's always gonna be radiating back up to the base of your plants, and it's gonna just crisp everything around it. So go with a nice little natural color, especially if you live in an area where there's going to be a lot of trees, a lot of leaves. Eventually the whole thing's just going to end up looking like a forest floor anyway. So a minimum of 3 inches on top of it, a little bit more if you're trying to get rid of something kind of nasty. And again, it creates this great sponge, slow down evaporation, and hold water in the soil a lot longer, which is really super key for keeping fluctuating temperature and moisture levels kind of at a nice little even keel. Now, you don't want to go ahead and put all your mulch right at the base of your plant. You want to give it a little bit of a wide berth to allow for the plant to breathe. So you always want to see a little bit of space. It's probably just going to be compost around the base of your plants, and then let the mulch kind of start a little soon after, just to give some open area. And again, it's going to be organic in nature, so all these materials will have to be, except for the compost, will have to be reapplied when they start to break down. So you'll have to, patch with some dry cardboard and add some coarse mulch on top. However long that lasts, it really all depends on a variety of different factors. The weather being probably the biggest factor. Next. Just a couple pictures, sheet mulching. We got rid of juniper and ivy in this one. That was our goal. And they did a very kind of drought tolerant, deserty kind of landscape with a lot of succulents and stuff. Next slide. Trenching. As you can see how we created a little bit of mounds. You can kind of see the mounding. Next slide. All right. So do you want to, because we have the time, go through the...
You can go through these slides.
I was just looking at the questions.
Oh,
We have 11 questions.
Let's go ahead and finish up, and then we'll get to the questions.
All right. So we talked about planting 5 gallons or larger plants prior to sheet mulching. So when the time comes to plant your 1 gallons or your 4-inch or smaller plants, let's definitely talk about that. So when the time comes, you're going to move back the mulch and the compost to get down to the cardboard. And if I'm a 1 gallon plant, I'm going to go ahead and cut into the cardboard and cut like an X. And then I'm going to peel back like a flower. I'm going to peel back all those cardboard layers, get down to where I can see the soil. And then I'm going to take my 1 gallon plant out. Chances are it may be root bound. And if it is, your goal is to try to loosen that root ball as much as possible prior to planting it. Sometimes you have to dig a little of that soil out of the hole. If you have any leftover compost, I might use that to just add underneath. And then I'm going to go ahead and plant it. I'm going to go ahead and replace the cardboard strips around it, then compost, and then I'm going to add the mulch. Again, I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap around the base of my plant, and I'm going to start the mulch a little further back. And then that's it. For 4 inches, I don't even have to dig into the cardboard. I just have to go down to the cardboard layer. Chances are that those 4-inch plants are not going to be root bound, and I'm going to place it right on top of the cardboard, move the compost, and move the mulch right back. The roots will penetrate down in through the cardboard and work their way down into the soil for sure. That's probably would be the easiest way. Again, make sure you allow for room around the plant. For succulents, I usually I will go a little further out for the mulch because you don't want the succulents to have too much water. That pretty much would kill them. It's a water killer for succulents. And then you're going to want to give them a little bit of space. Usually I will, if I have the compost, I might mix in some potting soil and use that in the middle and then start the mulch a little further out. You don't want to have too much water on that one too. Next slide.
Oops, sorry.
That's all right.
Oh, troubleshooting.
Yeah, troubleshooting. We talked briefly about Bermuda grass, how it has a tendency to really, it's a really great runner weed. The thing is, it's a tackler. You're not going to kill it because it's still going to want to try. It's going to always, Bermuda grass is always going to want to try. But the nice thing about the whole sheet mulching process is that it's going to want to come from super, super far to try to get to see where the light is going to be. But by the time it gets there, it's going to be very weak, very easy to pull out. So sometimes with weeds and sheet mulch, you get some flyovers, you got birds, you got squirrels. The nice thing about it is those weeds will be very, very easy to kind of pull out, especially if you get flyover. So don't wet the cardboard, go thick on the cardboard for sure. Make sure your trenches are clean along the edges for sure. And if you see anything, and like I said, plant some aster along the borders where you think Bermuda grass might be coming in from to kind of create this kind of very kind of dense barrier so it can't penetrate through, so it can't encroach. Next slide. Fungus. And if you have mulch right now, and since we just got rain, and as we work our way into hopefully I anticipate hopefully a rainy season, you're going to see a wide variety of fungus that's going to sit on top of your mulch. Completely normal, just part of the decomposition process. Some of them are things that you are familiar with, your regular, kind of button toadstool kind of scenario. Can you go to the next slide? Because there's more pictures. We've got different varieties in here as well. The other one that I don't have a slide for, it's basically called dog vomit because it does look like dog vomit. It's a slime mold. It's yellow. You'll recognize it. These are all kind of part and parcel of the decomposition gig. If you have any concerns with maybe kids or animals picking it, then you can pick the fruit, the mushroom that you actually see, but it most likely will come back at least a couple of times while it's still wet, because you're not able to pull out the roots, the mycelium, from underneath. But just keep picking the fruit if you have any concerns. Next slide. All right. So sour grass, I've already seen it. It's already starting to come. So it's here. So the good news is, there's no good news actually. I kind of liken oxalis as that one relative who likes to come and visit for the holidays and stays a really long time and takes up a lot of space, and you love them because you're related to them, but you know, you don't really look forward to their visit. It propagates by a variety of different things, the pollen, the little bulblets that exist underneath the soil. It can grow from tiny fragments. So my best guess is pick early and pick often when it comes to Bermuda grass. I mean, excuse me, to they call it sour grass, to oxalis. Pick it quickly and often, as much as you can. Once it gets to this stage, like is in the picture, it starts to flower, then it becomes very problematic. So try to do your very best and just kind of, unfortunately, just kind of deal with it until it kind of goes away. Next slide. All right. Like I said, sheet mulching is great, but there is going to be some after sheet mulching, some kind of ongoing maintenance that definitely needs to happen. Next slide. Adding more mulch. I think I've talked about this several times, but adding more mulch is going to be super key. Again, this is one of the reasons why I don't like to remove the tape from cardboard. You remove the tape from cardboard, not only is it degrading, because you know sometimes the cardboard actually comes off with the tape, but again, it's kind of like a flag. So if I can see, if I end up seeing bare cardboard, or if I do see a kind of a tape flag, then I know my mulch is broken down, most likely, and my cardboard is broken down too. So again, I'm going to go ahead and move back the mulch to where I see kind of where the where I need to patch, and then wherever you think you need to patch, then go wider with that. It's kind of like if you get, you know, kind of something cut out of you, maybe go to the dermatologist. They're not only going to take whatever's here, but they're going to also take a little bit on the excess. Kind of think of it kind of in those terms as well. Go big on the patch, return the old mulch, and then put new, nice thick mulch right on top. Next slide. So watering plants. So under normal circumstances, most drought tolerant native plants need about 1 to 2 years to get established. Usually the more fleshy ones, the fleshy stem ones happen first. Of course, the woodier ones are going to take a little bit longer, with the idea being that in our quote unquote typical winter, we could expect to have that winter feed our plants, our drought tolerant plants. Maybe they might need a little supplemental in the summer, but other than that, by the time they get fully established, then they can rely solely on the rains that we get in the winter time for sure. Also, really quick, that I hadn't, sorry, I need to back up really quick. When I wanted to talk about mulch that I had neglected to mention, you can buy mulch at a hardscape yard pretty much anywhere. And if you go to the marketplace on the lawn to garden, you have that as an option. Another great option is to get recycled content mulch from a tree trimmer as well. I've heard a lot of great things about chip drop. Personally, I like to call an independent kind of arborist or a tree trimmer. Chances are you're going to have a small yard, so you're not going to need as much mulch as, say, if you called like a big tree company like Davy Tree or something like that, where they're going to bring like 20 cubic yards. And if you have the room for that, that's great. But if you're, you know, you have a kind of a typical yard, that may be too much. Find something that's going to give you maybe about 5 to 10 yards, depending on, again, how big your yard is. And then that's the first question that I ask them. First of all, do they give it away for free? First question. How much can I expect? And they can put you on the list. So whenever they happen to be in your neighborhood or around your neighborhood doing work, then at the end of the day, they can come by and just go ahead and drop that off. Again, when I'm talking to them, and sometimes I'll call 2 or 3 different companies, and I have the option of refusing the load if my project's not ready, or if if I'm not ready for it. Another thing I always tell people is I always say no to mulch from eucalyptus trees, from black walnut trees, and from black locust trees. Those 3 trees all have what's known as allelopathic properties. It's kind of like this diva plant thing where I can be the only plant in this area and no other plants can kind of grow around me. The jury is still out whether or not once you chip up those trees and turn them into mulch, do those allelopathic properties still hold true? For me personally, I'm not willing to go that route just for the fact that I just shoveled 10 cubic yards of eucalyptus mulch, and now I realize that I can't grow anything in it. Now I have to remove and get rid of 10 cubic yards of eucalyptus mulch. So kind of err on the side of caution in order to make sure that happens well. So I just want to make sure I go ahead and cover that for sure. All right, next slide. Weeds. Like I said, there's a lot of flyovers from birds, squirrels, planting acorns and stuff like that. But you'll find those very, very easy to remove for sure. And even if you end up getting kind of pop-ups from above, sometimes cardboard shifts, especially when you're walking on it, stuff happens, cardboard breaks down. You'll still find that those that are growing up are going to be a lot easier to pull out. Just because it doesn't really have a lot of energy, they're pretty much trying to work that hard to get to that little bit of life. So it'll be very easy to remove. Excuse me.
Okay, so I guess we're going to jump into rebates now. And many of you may know that EB Mud offers lawn conversion rebates and irrigation upgrades. So converting your lawn to a low water garden, you can get up to $2,000 every 2 years for single family and $15,000 for commercial. We also have a lot of mulch and compost coupons. You can just Google ebmud.com/mulch and find them there. I will also be sending a follow-up email to everyone with a link to these sites. And we have a lot of resources, plant resources, plant design resources. I know design can be a little bit of a stumbling block of after you do the sheet mulch, then what kind of design do you want? But there's a lot of like design wizards now that we can use to help get people in the right direction of what they'd like for their garden. So yeah, and these are 2 websites, ebmud.com/watersmart and Lawn to Garden, for a lot more of what Lori has been talking about tonight. We also have a landscape rebate virtual office hour. So this is held twice a week, one on Tuesday from 12 to 1, and then on Tuesdays from 5 to 6. And you can just jump on. It's a meeting format. So you can just bring your question, listen to other folks, what they're talking about. If you're preparing to do a lawn conversion, or if you're in the middle of it, we're here to help you in these virtual meetings. So in summary, EB Mud relies on snowmelt primarily to serve our 1.4 million customers, and we are in a stage 2 drought, and we are asking for a 10% cutback from everyone. Working in your landscape, if you still do have a lawn, it's a good place to save some water by building a water-wise garden. There's many benefits of sheet mulching, of just keeping your lawn right in place. It can build soil health, suppress weeds, and it helps retain moisture in the soil by adding that compost. You first want to apply for a rebate with us if you're in our service area, and then call 811, add hardscape elements, and then the 5-gallon plants. The next thing you want to do is trench, create your mounds, and convert your irrigation to drip. Last, you add the cardboard, compost, mulch, and then add the smaller plants. And then there is a little bit of ongoing light maintenance as you watch and kind of get connected to your garden throughout the season. So we have quite a number of questions, Lori, that we have some time to get to.
All right. There was someone had questions about calculations, how much stuff to use, best place to get mulch and compost. So my best recommendation for that would be to go to the lawntogarden.org website. I know Kristen's going to be doing up a follow-up email, so I will include that link, as well as I will include a link to a couple of the PDFs, how to sheet mulch, and then there's a PDF that's called Now That Your Lawn Is Gone. So it's about ongoing maintenance after sheet mulching as well. So I would definitely look at the Lawn to Garden site. If you go to the marketplace, like again, put in your zip code, it'll tell you the closest places that you can get cardboard, compost, and mulch. And there's also a resource calculator. So you put the square footage of your sheet mulch project in there, and it'll give you calculations for cardboard, compost, and mulch. 2 inches of compost, 3 inches of mulch as well, and let you know definitely what you need for that. The question, many native plant experts recommend overhead sprinklers as more natural, less plastic in the soil, not a lot of water. The issue that I personally have with overhead sprinklers is the evaporation portion of it, placing the emitters or placing the tubing underneath the mulch is a kind of a two-pronged approach. First of all, because it is plastic, and being left out in the sun, it's going to degrade a lot quicker than if it isn't buried kind of underneath the mulch, where it's going to stay a lot cooler and not get as brittle as quickly. Also as well, the evaporation aspect of it, overhead is always going to be, if you can get the water underneath the mulch where the plants, where it acts as a reservoir, so the plants will be able to take advantage of that. I think that personally is going to work a lot better than overhead sprinkler. We talked about horsetail, foxtail. So yeah, again, if it's something that's pernicious that you think is going to be kind of problematic, again, if the weeds are kind of high, I would definitely cut them down and just let them lie on top of the area. If the diameter of the stem is pretty thick, I would definitely just go ahead and pull those out for sure. Those are going to take a lot longer. They always become problematic with the cardboard because they're just so thick. To kind of they may want to puncture the cardboard. So yes, so definitely if it's something that's kind of nasty, for sure, go ahead and go a little bit thicker on the cardboard and a little bit thicker on the mulch. Use a defoliate to block weeds like a chemical. I definitely would not recommend that. I would definitely only recommend using something that is going to be permeable, organic in nature. That's why cardboard is my favorite. We definitely want to try to avoid chemicals. It's one of the great things. We're killing weeds without having to really do a lot of work and not having to try to do too many inputs. Again, I want to be able to keep the soil super healthy, because if I keep it healthy, then in turn, it's going to take care of plant diseases. It's going to take care of pests in the soil. Completely unbeknownst to me, it's going to stop things before they even become a problem for my plants at the soil level. So keeping that soil healthy is going to be super key. Moving boxes, absolutely moving boxes. Newspaper versus cardboard, Marilyn. Cardboard, again, it's going to be perfect for any kind of perennial garden, anything that you're going to be planting, perennial plants, whether they be kind of, especially drought tolerant things. So whether they be kind of fleshy or definitely woody, I would use cardboard for that. But if I'm going something along kind of the tender annual route, you know, my kale or my chard or my cilantro or whatever, I would use thinner sheets of newspaper versus cardboard. Now, people always ask, well, can I use newspaper instead of cardboard? Newspaper is going to break down relatively fast, even if you put a fair amount of layers on it. Cardboard for sheet mulching, traditional sheet mulching with the coarse mulch is, I think, going to be your best bet. And then how many layers of boxes? It's really all about the overlap, Megan. It's really all about how much am I overlapping? Do I not see any gaps in my cardboard? Am I going 6 to 8 inches of it? So in some instances, you may find areas that are going to be 2 layers thick, or maybe even 3 layers thick. That's if you open up a cardboard box and you just do it as a single layer. The dump sells compost. Do you recommend this, or is the quality poor? I'm not sure what you mean by the dump, but chances are you're probably going to need larger quantities to do the sheet mulching. So usually in this case, even if you could get free mulch from the from a tree trimmer, and then of course you salvage kind of free cardboard, generally compost would be the one thing that you may have to come out of pocket for. So again, just go to Lawn to Garden, go to the marketplace. A lot of the compost that is being sold is recycled content compost, as well as it's a some of them are certified OMRI certified. They have the OMRI certification, which means it's been, excuse me, it's been stamped by kind of a third-party rater, and they test it for chemicals and contaminants and stuff like that. And if it doesn't pass muster, then they don't get to be certified. But it should say it all on that site. Let's see, advice on how to work with an HOA that won't allow sheet mulching for 6 months, as it is a bit unsightly. They won't allow sheet mulching for 6.
They don't want to see the bark and stuff for 6 months, I guess.
They want what? I'm sorry, they want what for 6 months?
They don't want to just see the bark. You know, Penny, when you sheet mulch, you are covering it with bark.
Right.
With the chips. So you don't necessarily have to have it 6 months. It could be just 2 or 3 months if you have Bermuda, right, Lori?
No, I would go for Bermuda. I would go at least 6 months for that, just because it's pretty tough.
It's not Bermuda,
but if it's not Bermuda, you could plant right away. That's the thing. I would still I would stick to planting in the cooler, wetter months, just for the fact that availability of plants. Right now, there's a lot of plant sales going on, which is great. Number 2, the availability of finding all these certain plants at your local nurseries, of course, and then just taking advantage of the cooler days and the potential for rain. And then if you can transition that relatively quickly, and if it's a budgetary thing, then just go for 4-inch plants. If you can go for 4-inch plants, you can fill up a space quite nicely. And make sure when you plant your plants for mature size. Read your labels and believe what they say. If this says it's going to be 4 feet wide, it's going to be 4 feet wide. So you should definitely double check. There's this great publication. I'll include it. It's called The Gardens of San Lorenzo. We worked stock waste. When we worked stock waste, we worked with one of the oldest HOAs in California, that's located in San Lorenzo, and they made a lovely book with the UC Berkeley students. It talks about sheet mulching. It has plant lists. I'll make sure to include that as well. I'm not sure if there's going to be some sort of language that you can work with the HOAs, but the HOAs really do need to get on board with sheet mulching, just because, especially if you're not using your lawn for anything, why not make it work, attract some pollinators, some beneficial insects, use a lot less water, especially for lawn. Let's see. Compost is the first layer, then cardboard. The pros and cons of cardboard first, then compost. Well, especially if you're going to be planting, the compost underneath the cardboard, while It still has great benefits. It's going to break down a lot faster underneath it. You want it to last as long as possible, especially as you're starting to get things established between the combination of the compost and the mulch layer right on top, holding that water, keeping the temperature on an even keel is going to be super key, getting your plants through to getting adjusted. If that's something that you're interested, then I would say, if you have it like that, do a layer of compost on the bottom and then do it on top of the cardboard. A very large area. You can, I'm not sure what the compost requirement is part of the rebate. There is, so I would definitely consider that. So if the too much compost is cost prohibitive, then you can get away with, and again, it all depends on the rebate. I can have Kristen answer that, but you can plant and use in some compost when the time comes to plant. I would definitely recommend it. And then especially if you're planting things like native, this is the only time that you have to bring it and incorporate it, just to get everything kind of established. Native plants are used to our nutrient poor soils and our climate, so they don't need too much fancy stuff. Why do I want to get rid of junipers? The client wanted to get rid of junipers. Junipers are the holdouts from landscaping from the late 70s to the early 80s. And if there's a plant that you have that's already established, whether or not it's drought tolerant or not, that's something you have to take into consideration. So if it's pretty, it's already established, you could always sheet mulch around it too. So don't feel the need that you have to get rid of plants that, don't bring you joy or are already set into your landscape too. I talked about get mulch and compost. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, as I mentioned, sorry, let's keep moving.
Oh, you got Rebecca's?
The compost should not burn the roots if they're making contact. They shouldn't do that. It definitely shouldn't. Compost should be just pretty basic. Any kind of compost that is quote unquote burns hasn't been fully composted. So you can always tell. Just let your nose do the shopping. Take a handful, put it in your face, smell it. Does it smell sweet? Does it smell kind of airy? Then cool. If it smells kind of like acrid or like ammonia, then no, it hasn't fully composted. Is it better to sheet mulch over a live green lawn or a dead dry lawn? For the rebate, as far as I know, Kristen, I know that thing still has to be alive prior to it, but either way, it what?
Not necessarily. So we know,
cool.
Yeah, if they turn off their water, fairly recently, we're not going to ding them for it.
Okay, cool. So yeah, it's either way is good. A dead lawn still holds dead grass still holds a fair amount of nitrogen in it, even after it's dead. So either way, you're getting rid of it. So live or dead, that nitrogen is still going to work its way into the back into the soil and help provide nitrogen for the plants that you're putting in after the fact. Do I use bender board along the edges? I do not use bender board. You can use bender board if you wish. The only problem is just making sure that the cardboard gets under wherever the bender board is. The cardboard should get underneath. Otherwise, it's just going to come straight up through the bender board. Also, you need to make sure that bender board is completely flush to whatever your hardscape is, because again, if it's going to be a gap, then that has a potential to come up as well. Just do really good trenching. Really good trenching is going to be kind of key. Along the sidewalk, if you trench along the sidewalk, you don't have to remove the line. You can just cap it. Most PVC lines run anywhere from generally the standard is 1/2 inch. So you can just get a 1/2 inch cap and then cap the ones that you don't want to use, for sure. For some folks, sometimes, and I just ran into this in a sheet mulch party that I was at a few weeks ago. Usually I find in newer subdivisions where they have basically kind of done a bespoke irrigation and connected it all together. So it's not a question of being able to remove the sprinkler head from the main line, for the main PVC line. They're all either kind of hinged together. So if you can't go down to the PVC and put a 1/2-inch cap on top of it, you still do have the option of removing the top portion of the sprinkler head, removing the entire housing, including the spring and everything, and then getting a cap to go over the old sprinkler head, and using that to kind of cap it as well. So you have a couple of options, for sure. Let's see. This is the one that Roy, I've never heard about bringing in cockroaches in that for mulch. I've never actually heard of that happening. So I don't really have an answer for that, to be honest.
Maybe the master gardeners
Possibly.
can help with that, master gardeners.
Nancy doesn't have a lawn. She has established landscaping with sheet mulching areas that don't have the planting. Yes. Anytime you bring mulch to the party, it is effective. And then the nice thing about it is it doesn't really work as well if you don't have that cardboard weed blocker, because eventually as people step on it, or, dogs and cats and bugs and whatever kind of root around it, it just opens it up. And then because right now we are just on the precipice of, once we get the rains, here come the weeds, and it's going to be nothing but weeds all the way in through March. So it's always going to be really good to try to incorporate that cardboard with your mulch, and then just go ahead and sheet mulch around your existing plants, for sure. Excuse me.
I'll just answer this about the PowerPoint. Yes, I will be sending a follow-up email with the PowerPoint and this live video, and also links to many of the resources that we're talking about, a lot of mulch and coupon links, and the links to our rebates.
Let's see, the maximum thickness of the cardboard can be, the thick I've ever used has been a bike box, which is pretty much my best guesstimate would be if I took like 3 regular cardboard boxes and, flatten them out and stack them on top of each other. It's a good 3 layers, which I think is pretty good, even for Bermuda grass and stuff like that. But for that, I'm thinking in some instances, it's always nice to do smaller boxes, especially along the edges, and then top it with a big box on top, making sure that overlaps all the smaller boxes underneath. That way, that's kind of the cap. Then if it shifts while you're trying to sheet mulch, you're only shifting like one big piece. You're not shifting a bunch of little pieces too. Let's see. I talked about waiting at least about 6 months after you plant over Bermuda grass, just for the fact that it's pretty tenacious. The only other recommendation I would say, that if you wanted to plant sooner, then only do 4-inch plants. Don't cut into the cardboard. Just put it right on top of the cardboard. There still may be the possibility as the roots get down and light might be exposed, but it's always best to just kind of wait a little bit because it's pretty tenacious. The time frame. So generally, I always like to sheet mulch in fall. If you're just trying to get rid of like a regular lawn, no weird weeds, no ivy, no vinca, no pernicious Bermuda grass or anything like that, now is a great time to sheet mulch it and then plant, soon after, within the confines of these cool weather potential rain kind of stuff. I know, I believe it's 6 months. If you do the rebate, you have 6 months in order to plant, which kind of puts us into late spring kind of territory as we start to kind of ramp up with the hotter weather. So that's certain things that you do need to think about. What am I trying to get rid of? Because how long does that have to wait? Can I plant right away, or do I have to wait until the following fall in order to plant? Are there restrictions in Alameda County on planting a garden in the front yard, like food garden, Jim? As far as I know. Oh, water-wise garden. Oh, no, there's no restrictions. I mean, I think the only restriction I would recommend is making sure it's the right plant, right place. Look and make sure that you read the labels, so that we don't have to do a lot of pruning as the plants kind of overcrowd each other. So plant for maximum size. Yes, it is recorded, folks, and I know she's going to it's going to be on YouTube. Why is rototill not recommended? Oh, I'm sorry, what?
No, go ahead.
Why is rototill not recommended? Rototill is definitely it's very problematic, especially if you're dealing with things like clay soil. Clay soil is compact just on its own, rototilling it is only going to compact it a little bit more. Rototilling also helps to expose dormant weeds that are living underneath the soil. And once you get them water, once you get them light, and if you're going to be sheet mulching over it, there's really no reason to rototill the soil. Again, once you add these beautiful layers on top, and once they all start to kind of break down and everything, the moisture, everything, that you'll find that the soil itself is going to, especially for clay soil, the soil itself is going to slowly starting to loosen and loosen and loosen over time. And as you start to walk on it, you'll kind of feel it gets a little bit springy. And then when the time comes to, to plant in it or to dig in it, you'll find that your shovel is going to go into it a lot easier than it did before. So rototill would definitely be, I think, a waste of time and energy. Just sheet mulch over top of it. Oh, a sheet mulch party. I worked with another water agency, and they had me come out to show folks how to sheet mulch. They picked a homeowner, and then we sheet mulched their front yard. Remove grass if not Bermuda. No need to remove that grass at all. Do not cut it out. Do not have it excavated. Do not have anything. Just cover it and let it sheet mulch into place for sure. Let's see. This one on the bottom for the rebate apply if she's only replacing a partial one. Yeah, I think as long as you, yeah, I think as long as you qualify for what the minimums are and you're specific about the area in question, you can. I don't see why not.
Yes, the only piece would that be that they're on different zones, the lawn and the low water garden, but certainly
okay,
replace part of your lawn for sure.
Yeah. Ivy, again, I would do the same thing for ivy and blackberry that I would do for Bermuda grass. I would wait at least 6 months in order to plant because they live a long time in the soil. They live a long time even when you cover them up.
Wow, that was a really interested group. We had 44 questions. One more. Okay,
oh no, that was just Cheryl responding back.
Yep. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating today and asking all these great questions. And we see that this is a super important thing. The sheet mulching, it does have, people do have a lot of questions about it. And it's super fun once you get going on it and feel like you're developing your skill. But we're also here for our landscape rebate office hours, and we can also continue to answer questions as you go along with your sheet mulching and your lawn conversion. project. So we will continue to provide support for you. Thank you so much, Lori, for answering all these questions. I guess we have
You're
a
welcome.
and we do have, let's see, what do we have here?
Oh, no, just people saying
Yay.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll be sending you all the resources, and please tap into us again when you need some support with your project.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put that in an email to you when we're done here.
Okay. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Sure. Thank you, Lori. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Bye-bye.